and welcome to Splunk Tech Talks. In this IT edition, we will focus on Splunk for SAP and SAP customers. My name is Nicolas Cortides, or just called Nico, and I'm the sub-solution specialist for EMEA and based out of Germany. With me on this call, my partner in crime, Martin Weiser, our field solution engineer and based in the US, but you will hear on his accent he is from Austria and also German speaker too. Our agenda today, and I will try to limit the time we will spend on slides to give you as much as possible time on the demo with Martin. I will show you why SAP is a key business service or part of your most critical business services, why it's important to reduce the downtime and the MTTR to get your services back up and running. Then Martin give one of his famous demo of service intelligence for SAP. And we will show you how to engage with Splunk and how to get more about SAP and how we Splunk SAP data. So what are SAP customers used to? So they're used to use tools which are built in many years ago. So they're using tools like Solution Manager, and they will still use Solution Manager for the management of their environment. And they're also used to use other silos tools which are just showing them the world in SAP, but not surrounding systems or the underlying infrastructure. And this is really dangerous because SAP is mostly part of your most critical business services. So, and also you have really limited capabilities in visualization and search inside of these tools, not like in Splunk, and they're just meant to be used by really technical folks. And also, the alerting or predictive analytics is really limited inside of these tools. So, and why it's so important to understand the service health for your business. Because if you look top down, what your company and your business wants is to create revenue, to have customer satisfaction, keep the brand reputation high, and overall to keep your business running. So if one of the business service fails because of an outage in an application level, this has immediate impact on your customer satisfaction and your revenue. And this most of the time does not come from the application layer itself. It comes from maybe the underlying infrastructure layer because something fails in the network or storage or virtualization. And if you are just focusing, looking and investigating on the application layer, you are blind on the underlying infrastructure layer. And so this is why it's so important to have all the information collected in a platform like Splunk so you can have all the visibility on all layers. Also, you can turn it around. If something fails in your infrastructure layer, you know what impact it will have in your application services and in your business services. Martin will show later on much more in this demo about this. So how we do SAP monitoring from Splunk perspective. So on the left side, you can see a typical basic architecture of an SAP environment with the different business models and functions installed on top of it. And it's running on different HANA or other databases. And we are collecting this data with help of Power Connect, a third-party tool built by the company Software One. And Power Connect is extracting the data from the black box SAP and sending it to Splunk via HTTPS. So it's encrypted and really safe. And we are consuming this data into ITSI. So, and we are not just consuming the SAP data, we are also consuming the underlying OS and infrastructure layer, and then we can give you the whole picture about what is going on in your environment from business, from operating system, from infrastructure, so you can see everything in one place. So we are breaking the silos and give you the possibility to do the root cause analysis if something fails into every level of your data center or cloud. So, and as I mentioned before, I will really limit the slides I want to show you and give Martin as much time as possible to guide you through the demo. And so I will hand over to Martin, and please enjoy the demo. Thank you from my side so far.
Thank you, Nico. That was a great overview. Now let's jump right into the demo. Monitoring SAP environments is on the top of many clients' priorities. These environments represent some of the most critical business applications the customers care about. However, monitoring them is not a trivial task. Typically, there are several of these environments present and optimized for various use cases with deep interdependencies on business workflows. At the same time, these environments don't exist in a silo, but are highly dependent upon shared infrastructure components like virtualization, storage, compute, or networking. The traditional SAP monitoring tools like Solution Manager unfortunately don't provide any of these shared infrastructure correlation capabilities, understand typical environment usage, or allow you to integrate into larger troubleshooting processes via service management platforms. This is a real pain point, as you guys can surely relate to. You are asked to watch the company's crown jewels with very limited technical capabilities. The Service Intelligence for SAP Content Pack has been purpose-built to address these common monitoring shortcomings. Let me walk you through a typical SAP pain point. In this case, it will be iDocs related, and use this example to highlight the difference between monitoring specific ABAP data points or having a real-time service insight platform. Here is a typical pain point we hear from our customers. Corporate IT implements an infrastructure change. This can be on the compute stack, the storage or the database layer, or the shared network infrastructure, with the best guess on assessing the risk and the impact of the change. In our example, that change is a firewall change blocking a specific port across the board because of an active security threat. That change unfortunately blocks one of the SAP integration destinations for remote function calls to send iDocs, in this case contracts, orders and invoices, between an ERP and a CRM SAP instance. What we hear from our customers is that they typically perform the destination checks based on the SAP checklist once a day, but because of multiple SAP environments and other competing workload, these endpoint tests are not constantly executed and monitored, and typically get exposed to by business users calling in about broken or partially executed workflows, or by batch jobs being hung or aborted. Now let's take a look and see how this particular example would materialize, looking at the real-time health of this SAP environment using the Service Intelligence for SAP Content Pack. Here we have a real-time view of the M74 SAP instance. No failed batch job report or customer call is needed to see that the instance is in a pretty bad spot right now. Now let's investigate one of these hotspots by looking at the ABAP integration technical service. Based on the scenario outlined before, we immediately see that the failed destinations are going through the roof. Now let me stop here for a second and elaborate on some of the core capabilities of ITSI. ITSI has several machine learning capabilities built into the platform which learn the typical behavior of an environment. Like in this case, 28 failed destinations indicates a problem. In another environment, this may be perfectly normal. ITSI typically takes about 5 days to learn these typical behavior patterns. It will then adjust the thresholds accordingly, so you don't need to manually set them or understand the usage patterns of each and every one of these performance counters across all of your environments. Let's check out another hotspot in the current health of the M74 instance. Let's look at the real-time health of our queuing system. Just like we see that the failed destinations are increasing, we also see the failed remote function calls increasing quite significantly. One item I'd like to point out here is that all of these additional symptoms are displayed in real time, giving the operations teams as much insight into the current state of the environment without having to pull completely distinct event types or datasets. As you guys know, once the queues start backing up, it's only a matter of time until the business users are impacted and outage recovery efforts significantly increase. Now let's take a look at our beloved iDocs and check what state those are in. It is important to know that there's two levels of investigative data available for analysis. Within the SAP instance tree, we reduce the overall set of monitored key performance indicators to exactly that, key performance indicators, things that make the system tick. At any point in time, we can drill significantly deeper into those data sets, accessing another level of detail by launching the Power Connect best practices troubleshooting views. Power Connect is the brain behind the SAP Content Pack and is responsible for unlocking all the data elements from SAP and making it available in Splunk. Power Connect can literally access all the data points that are available in Solution Manager or within SAP reports and allow for a much deeper level of investigative analysis. Now here on a single screen we can highlight several of the differences in the traditional troubleshooting process within SAP. First, we see in real time various symptoms and issues across the entire event type landscape. Second, we only alert on the one KPI or the multiple KPIs that are truly abnormal, and we automatically learn the normal usage for each environment. And third, we put drill down reports at your fingertips to deep dive into all of these event types. Now let's go back to the troubleshooting process. Once we determine that we have a high number of IDOC failures across many different IDOCs, it is definitely time to act. The challenge we've heard from our SAP customers is that while these failed IDOCs are typically symptoms of larger root causes, they often don't have the visibility into the shared infrastructure data to speed up their investigation. Just run through this example with me. You have a failed destination check. It could be an aborted job, an endpoint that stopped accepting new connections, a network path that is unstable, or a blocked firewall port. There's many potential causes for this failed destination check. Now, if you would have visibility into the health of the shared infrastructure components, you could fast track the investigation, even if you're not the one who eventually can fix it. So when you call the corporate operations center or you escalate through your service management systems, these details will help prioritize the business impact correctly for the network team, as well as provide them with the required details to speed up their side of the investigation. Let me show you how Service Intelligence for SAP would help in this area. Service Intelligence for SAP sits on top of Splunk's IT Service Intelligence solution, also known as ITSI. ITSI has an event analytics capability that at the surface may look similar to Solution Manager. In there, you can acknowledge events, reprioritize them, or change the lifecycle status. You can also act on them by either triggering automated, semi-automated, or manual recovery actions, or initiate a deeper and broader investigation and join individual events into larger episodes. Rather than dealing with individual alerts, ITSI clusters these alerts together and tries to present them in a way how they substantially shorten your mean time to repair. In this case, we see that this outage on the M74 ABAP system that affects TRFC, IDOCs, and the integration layer is also affecting the shared infrastructure, the networking, and the firewall tier. So if we go to our events timeline and toggle to the root cause analysis, we see that the first event actually originated from the shared IT infrastructure layer, and after that our firewall degraded. So what we will do is we will analyze this in more details using what is called a deep dive. In the deep dive, we have a time series that basically shows us every key performance indicator and its value over time. So here we see our IDOC failures, and initially they were fairly low, but eventually they started getting higher and higher and higher. Our IDOCs failures per IDOC, same thing. Now if we overlay this information with our failed destinations, we see that before the deep dives degraded, our failed destinations degraded. Our failed RFCs were right behind them. So it looks like that the failed destinations actually were an early indication. After that, the remote function calls, and after that, the IDOCs failed. Now what we want to do is, since the event analytics platform suggested that maybe the root cause may be in the shared infrastructure. Let's bring in the shared infrastructure components. So let's drill down to the firewall tier, and in the firewall tier, under the shared infrastructure, let's look at the health. We see that networking is impacted. Under networking, we see that the firewall is having problems, and we see unauthorized connections being abnormally high. Now, I already brought in my unauthorized connections, and I see in there that they really preceded the failed destinations. So it looks like that there's a firewall that may potentially cause this issue. Now, since we have many firewalls in our environment and this is an aggregated view, let me look into which firewalls are truly affected. Now, in this case, I know for a fact that my SAP system sits behind the BizApps firewall, and the BizApps firewall is the one that's in a pretty unhappy state right now. Now, let's take that information, move it to the top, and assume that the firewall is really the root cause. But let's see if there are any scheduled changes against the firewall system. In here, I can also bring in my ServiceNow change requests. By looking at the ServiceNow change requests, I see that there was a global firewall change implemented that updated some access control lists that may actually have caused this whole problem to begin with. Now, I have enough information available at my fingertips to really take this episode and send it over to the corporate NOC with all the information that is necessary for them to solve this fairly quickly. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to acknowledge this episode, and then I'm going to send it to ServiceNow. Now, out of the box, we integrate into ServiceNow, BMC Remedy, and Sharewell, and all the major ticketing systems like Atlassian's Jira. What we heard from many SAP customers is that this integration is a major pain point for them. So some customers told us that it took them north of 9 months to have their solution manager communicate with the ServiceNow system. With the SAP Content Pack, this integration comes out of the box. It even synchronizes major elements like the status or the priority. So as your firewall incident gets fixed and the status gets updated in ServiceNow, we'll see those updates reflected in ITSI. Now let me stop here and recap the major benefits in this troubleshooting process compared to the traditional toolsets that you are used to. First, you have real-time visibility into your SAP stack. This goes for the entire technical health of the stack, but it also allows you to look across your entire SAP landscape, as you see here. Here we have many SAP instances that all report the health in real time. The second piece is you have much broader correlation capabilities that include SAP, but also span shared infrastructure like compute, networking, databases. All these data elements represented blind spots to traditional monitoring in the past. You have much broader out-of-the-box integration capabilities that allow you to integrate into your corporate troubleshooting process, like service management solutions, for example, or the ability to automatically trigger recovery actions for well-known pain points. And you have a very, very short time to value. The installer is truly a turnkey solution, building out each SAP instance tree automatically and discovering the major components and the dependencies in that service tree. Common feedback from our customers after this demonstration is typically along the lines of, this looks very powerful, but how much time is actually involved in building out this service tree? The good news here is that a lot of self-describing information is collected from SAP via Power Connect. Power Connect knows exactly what's the underlying platform. Is it ABAP? Is it Java? What components are being installed? And even what's the underlying database that is being used. Based on this, the creation of the service tree is fully automated. The installer app first discovers the various SAP instances, and then it makes sure that the most recent version of the key performance indicator templates is being used. After that, it figures out which SAP instances may be missing some data types. So it lists out the various instances that are available for installation and the various data types that may be missing in order to light up all the different out-of-the-box key performance indicators. The installer tells us which instances have been installed, which instances are available for installation, and allows us to build the services out with a particular prefix. Now what we are going to do is we are going to install the APP ABAP instance. Once the installation is completed, the new APP instance is automatically being monitored and the data points are being collected. Let's drill down into the queuing system and we see that all the different data points are coming in now. Now this is real-time monitoring, not across one, but many different SAP instances, really across your entire SAP landscape. Now let's jump back into slides to wrap this session up. With Service Intelligence for SAP, Splunk ITSI users will get full stack visibility into their SAP environments. This includes functional and business key performance indicators as well as technical KPIs. On a single SAP instance, we monitor over 500 individual data points to determine the health of each and every major SAP component. We leverage several machine learning capabilities of ITSI to reduce the alert noise, but also to predict outages via ITSI's predictive analytics capability. And we focused our entire troubleshooting flow to reduce mean time to repair and resolve issues quicker. Here are some additional resources for monitoring SAP and Splunk. I want to highlight especially the conf papers. These are typically customer sessions held at past user conferences. These sessions show you customer journeys as well as learnings when monitoring large SAP landscapes. We also have a very active community. I'd like to point out two resources, Answers and Ideas. Answers allow you to post questions and respond to questions from other customers with your own personal experience on how to best tackle a problem. Ideas, on the other hand, allow you to submit enhancement requests and get them upvoted by the community. This allows our product management to have a better understanding on how to prioritize capabilities into future roadmaps. And before we wrap up, I want to mention that we are working on increasing our presence on peer review sites like TrustRadius and Gartner's Peer Review Insights. If you're enjoying ITSI and you have a robust or possibly unique implementation use case, we want to hear from you and would appreciate if you could leave us a review on one of these sites. With that, thank you very much for your participation, and I hope you enjoyed the demonstration around Service Intelligence for SAP.